Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Divergent Dialogues. In this episode, we will be talking about strategies and accommodations in learning. So, in our last episode, we talked about common challenges that autistic folks and ADHDers experience in learning across like primary, high school, and tertiary education. We thought this episode we'd have a chat about I guess some of the strategies and accommodations that we personally find helpful for ourselves and for our clients in navigating some of these challenges in the classroom.
Yeah, strategies that help.
Yeah. So did you have any strategies, Teena?
Well, yeah, like when you look for answers around, what helps. There is many different suggestions, which I think is good because different things work for different people.
Mm.
Um, but where do you start with the conversation? I think if we start in primary school, I think it's really looking at what are we strategizing for? Are we trying to find strategies to get kids to sit down, look forward, pay attention, don't speak, don't move, all that kind of stuff? Or are we looking at strategies to support kids to actually absorb information? I think the first question is like, what are you what are you actually strategizing? What outcomes you're looking for?
Yeah, exactly. Because traditionally, a lot of the methods used for autistic ADHDers may not even necessarily be diagnosed as well.
Mm-hmm.
Was a lot of those sorts of behavioral interventions. So, like star charts and, having to meet certain behaviors and all this kind of thing. And as the anecdotal evidence and the research is coming out and more families are speaking out, is that expecting expecting neurodivergent kids to act neurotypical is really challenging and unrealistic and
Mm.
unfair, because not only is it really challenging, but also it doesn't help them to learn. So if the goal is to support the child to learn, then we need to find what supports them to learn, not what the neuro majority, what works for them.
Yeah, you're right. It's not about how do we trick, bribe,
Yeah.
uh, convince this kid to learn the same way neurotypical kids do. It's about, what does this particular person need to be able to better comprehend, absorb the information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess something that I do in my private practice is I will do some assessments around executive functioning profiles to get a better understanding of that, because depending on someone's executive functioning profile, it's going to change the strategies and the accommodations that may support that person. Like as I was saying in the last episode, um, as a solely autistic person, as a solely ADHD person, as an autistic ADHDer, we all have our own different like sensory profiles and executive
Yeah.
functioning profiles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's important to start with going, okay, let's understand this person executive functioning profile. Let's understand how this person absorbs information in the best way. For the autistic folks, let's explore their sensory profile. And then once I have that information, then it helps me to be able to tailor strategies and accommodations to meet those needs. We don't want to just be kind of throwing things and hoping that they stick, at the wall and hope they stick. We're not. Just to clarify, we're not throwing things at children. That we're not doing that. But like we're not just kind of going, oh well, here's a strategy. Like here's a wall calendar. Like these sorts of like arbitrary. And I think a lot of autistic ADHDers and families and parents, they get frustrated because there's all these just arbitrary solutions, usually with a price tag, like thrown at them. But it's really important to seek support and see someone who can, like, who is like neurodivergent affirming and is informed about autism and ADHD and how that presents, and can do these different assessments to help understand you, to find what works, because what works for me might not work for you, might not work for someone else. So it really starts there.
And I think the other thing on strategies, accommodations, and interventions in the learning space is to really highlight that there is no magic bullet, so to speak. There's no magic pill, so to speak, or strategy that just fixes it all. It's when attention, concentration, movement, time management, working memory, when these things contribute to the things that you struggle with, there are things that you can do to help sort of minimize the challenge that you have with them, but it doesn't make it go away. With like working memory stuff, using strategies where, having two screens, for example, when you're working at a computer, so you can have the thing on one screen and you're typing on the other. That strategy is not going to eliminate your working memory challenges. You're still going to be back and forth 100 times, because even when the screen's right there, the 3 seconds to look in the other direction,
oh, yes,
it's gone. Yeah. So it's not remembering that these strategies and accommodations, they can help, but it doesn't make the challenges go away. They're still there.
Yeah. And again, like I'm happy to share strategies that work for me, because I've had support, and obviously, like, I'm very aware of things in this space. But I do really encourage people to go out and get support to be able to identify, if it's your child or for yourself. And again, like in Teena, I'm sure you probably have different strategies to me, but for me, I really lists.
Mm-hmm.
If it wants to exist, it's on a list. If I learned, even before I was diagnosed with ADHD, I learned that for me, I can't rely on my brain to remember things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found that if there's something important, I will I use mainly like Google, like the suite of Google, and like I have notes, and I have my calendar, and I have emails, and I have this, like I've set up my own system that works for me, but as soon as I have a thought, I'm like, okay, I've got to put it into my phone. So I just got into the habit of doing that, and that really helps me. Something that motivates me to get things done is having a deadline. If I don't have a deadline, I'll just be like la-di-da, like I'll find anything else to do. Mm-hmm. In saying that, I'm also highly productive doing literally everything else that other than the thing that I need to do, even if there is a deadline. But it definitely does help. It helps to provide some containment of, okay, well, I need to get this done, however that is. I think for me, I need structure, but I also need flexibility. So having a deadline is great, because it's like, okay, this is the structure, there's the deadline, but how you get there, that's up to you. However that looks, that's up to you, kind of thing. So just off the top of the head, there are a few things that when it comes to learning, keeping lists, setting deadlines, putting things in my calendar, all that kind of stuff. Like for me, that really does help. For other people, other clients that I've worked with, they go, Caitlin, that's super overwhelming for me. And like I find that really hard, and that's okay as well. And then there may be other strategies that, work for them.
I'm much the same as you with the deadlines and the calendars. So something that I also find really helpful, like ADHDers, we're good at following instructions, but like we know what to do, but it's the doing part that gets difficult for a lot of us. So something that I find really, really helpful is like I micromanage myself. So I separate the planning from the doing. So at the moment, I'm needing to do a literature review. So I have broken that down into bigger chunks and scheduled it in for, like in week blocks. And in each chunk is like micromanaged tasks under it in the calendar spots when I plan to do it. So when I sit down at my desk to work on this literature review, I know what day it is, I know what time it is, and in the notes section in my calendar entry, I know exactly what I'm doing when I sit down. So I don't have to take up that little bit of time that I've allocated with trying to figure out what I'm going to use this time for, because that boom, it's gone. Whether it's 1 hour that you had set aside to work on a project, or whether it's a whole day, if you don't know what you're going to be doing when you get to that, then you can spend the whole time figuring out what you're going to do in that time block.
Yeah, particularly like if your executive functioning profile is that you do struggle with that planning and prioritization and that organization. If you're expecting yourself to plan and organize and do it all in the same day, it's really unfair to yourself, because you're chewing through all this executive functioning, battery power, whatever you want to call it. It can be helpful to pace things out and go, okay, I'm gonna plan and structure it today, and then in a week's time or tomorrow, whatever, I'm going to actually start digging in and getting it done, and pacing out, breaking it down into chunks and pacing it out can help to reduce that overwhelm. But there's some reassurance of, okay, well, I know it's going to get done before the due date because I've set this plan out so that it is done. Something that I recommend to some of my clients is setting a deadline before the deadline, especially us ADHDers. We love like sliding in there at the last minute and editing our assessments, which causes a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of lost sleep. It can be really dysregulating. Ideally, we don't want to be relying on the adrenaline of the stress to be able to get things done. And so like sometimes setting a deadline before the deadline can be helpful, because it might give you like a few days leeway where it's like, okay, well, by this date I need to get it 80% done. And then if there's bits and bobs you need to finish or whatever, then that's a lot easier than being like, okay, it's the night before or the day of, I need to smash out a whole assignment.
Absolutely. And one of the strategies that I use is like safety net catch-all days. So like I'm doing this literature review and I've got a week's worth of tasks scheduled out, but then the following week I do not use up all my allocated time. I don't schedule anything in there. The time block is still there, but though that time block is now like a safety net block. And if I don't need the safety net block, because sometimes your brain is sharp, it's on point, it's going, and you're smashing stuff out of the park. But then other times you sit down and I've micromanaged myself. I know exactly what I need to do, but I sit at my desk like a potato, like spawning those little eyes that they grow, just
things. Yeah.
And I can barely think. Or a big frustration is you sit down and your brain's going really fast, but the internet's going super slow.
Oh yeah.
You start making more mistakes than and doing things, and you then next minute you're actually just trying to reset your internet and all that kind of stuff. So having safety net days where if I don't need the safety net day, I've got this free block that maybe I can, I don't know, take a bath or cook a recipe from one of my cookbooks. It's something I like to do, but that strategy is really helpful because sometimes the desire to have that next block remain unscheduled is just so appealing that it's like, no, I'm getting this done, I'm getting it done.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really important point to highlight, Teena, is that we for autistic folks can have executive functioning challenges, ADHDers can have executive functioning challenges, usually to a larger extent, and obviously autistic ADHDers executive functioning challenges, and it can be really important to be gentle with ourselves. I said there might be some days where you're smashing it and other days where you're feeling like a potato and you're really struggling, and I think that's why it is important to give yourself that leeway or that buffer. So like, again, like setting the deadline for the deadline, it gives you a buffer so that if you're really struggling, it's like, okay, well, I've still got a few days to get this done. And something else I wanted to mention before was that you can use, if you struggle with planning and organizing, you can use AI to help with that. So for example, if you have a particular task that you want to do and it has lots of steps, you can just put it into AI and be like, I want to do this. Can you break it down into 4 steps for me? And it will do that. So there are technologies out there, like there may even be specific ones like that you could use that help with like scheduling and setting tasks and all this kind of thing. And obviously they have various price tags attached to them, but using digital like technologies and AI and things like that to make things easier for yourself, because as a someone who has executive functioning challenges, you have to do a lot of things manually, like putting things into my diary and doing this and doing that. Like, it all takes time and it takes executive functioning. So like, just try and make things as easy for yourself as possible, and there's like, it's totally fine to use AI. I mean, in terms of like, obviously in terms of writing assignments and things like that, like, I think some universities or some some different educational institutions. I'm not trying to think of the word. They might have different policies around AI use. Like, some are just staunchly like no. Some may provide, like, they might provide that as accommodation, as they might let you use AI in order to like edit it. Like, so you've got to kind of do a lot of it yourself, but edit it or whatever. But yeah, obviously you need to follow your educational institution guidelines. We don't want to get anyone in trouble.
No.
But yeah, in terms of like planning and prioritizing and organizing day-to-day stuff, or organizing like your assignments and things and trying to break that down into the steps, like, yeah, you can definitely use AI for that.
Yeah. And I think remembering as well how stress and the anxiety that can come from trying to navigate new tasks, learn new concepts, learn new things that might not necessarily come naturally, that stress can also act as a real barrier to being able to absorb information and comprehend what you're learning. So also using your strategies to manage stress, like mindfulness and standing up, taking a breath, go for a walk, those kinds of things. And talking to your teachers, like whatever stage of learning you're at, and asking if they have some of the class notes that you can access, because some people take things in by listening, other people need to read it, some people need both. So yeah, talking to your teachers to ask what are the different ways that I can consume this information.
Yeah, like, I love audiobooks, or like, I use what's it called, Natural Reader. There's a free version and a paid version, but things like that, like you can upload PDFs, or you can cut and paste text and it will read it to you. Also using voice to text. So if you're stuck on an assignment and you're finding it hard to sit there and type it out or write it out, just do voice to text and just start like doing a bit of a brain dump verbally, and then when you feel up to it, you might be able to kind of edit that and change that into like a more structured assignment. So using all these like little things that you may not have thought of, and it might just make it that little bit easier for you to get things done. And again, like, you don't have to do things in this linear way. You don't have to do it exactly how everyone else is doing it. It's about finding what works for you, and that can change from day to day as well. But something that is really important, is, especially for autistic folks, is having an understanding of your sensory profile, and also having like a bit of a plan. So especially for primary school and high school students, being able to have discussions with like your teachers, and being able to have that support as well, being able to draw from the support there, and being able to use like noise cancelling headphones or loops or something like that.
Mm.
Or I remember, I mean, this wasn't an accommodation in the sense of we asked for it or whatever, but I think I might have talked about this already in another podcast. I can't remember, but anyway, I had like a cushion. I found the plastic seats were too hard, and I didn't really like, obviously at the time I didn't know, but it was a sensory thing. I didn't like the feeling of the plastic on my butt, basically. So I had like this little like pillow to sit on, because like, and I didn't realize at the time, but it was a sensory thing. But like little things like that, usually teachers don't care. But sometimes there's a bit of stigma around, like, oh well, if you had headphones on or you've got loops in, you're not listening, and all this kind of thing. And so sometimes you may need like letters from like your accredited mental health social worker or your OT or your psychologist or speechy or whatever, to support of being able to use these things. Like, I think like uni is usually a lot more flexible, but with primary and high school, usually there needs to be some sort of like recommendations around that, unless it's a particularly progressive school.
Yeah. Yeah, but there are lots of different things that can be done. But I think remembering that these strategies and ideas and interventions, accommodations, whatever they might be called, they don't make the difficulty or the thing that makes it difficult go away. They just can really help you to like get the outcome you're looking for, which in the context of learning is to learn the thing. It can just support you to reach that outcome. But it requires commitment from the person. I've got all my planning, organizing, things happening, and sometimes you forget to use them, and it's like, oh, I'm feeling like so out of control, and I'm just feeling lost and chaotic, and it's like, I need to sit down and do some scheduling. I need to catch up on my schedule. Or it's so remembering that it's okay to forget and then go back to it, because forgetting sometimes is a part of it.
Yeah. It's often a big part of it. That's why we need this in the first place. But yeah, it's so funny. Like, I'll just like, if you're like me and you have so many lists, you forget that like you have a list of something, and you're, oh yeah, that's right, I had that list. So I have to sift them or whatever, pin the ones, and things like that. But yeah, I think like, and I guess the other thing is like, you're not alone. There are a lot of other people that have a lot of these struggles, and it can be really important to connect and with other people that are experiencing these challenges as well. And it can be important to reach out at the school. Maybe they have some resources there, or like at a lot of universities, well, at least in Australia, often they'll have a like a I don't know, like a service or a department or something for people that have disabilities.
Like inclusion or learning support, or
Yeah, often you have to provide a formal diagnosis, so that might not be super helpful for self-diagnosed folks, well, self-identifying folks. But yeah, I think a lot of people, they feel kind of shy to reach out for that support, and you don't even if you do. I guess engage with them. You don't necessarily have to use the accommodations, but it's just a bit of a safety net if you do need them, and it's just at least suss it out and see what's available to you there. Also, as I said, getting some support from like an accredited mental health social worker, or an OT or a speechy or a psychologist, whoever your preference is, to be able to um, do some assessment around some of these challenges, understanding your profile, and then tailoring the strategies and accommodations to your needs.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. I feel like that's a natural conclusion to to
Yeah, it
this
was quite
episode.
natural, wasn't it?
Oh, we've smashed out a few episodes. So my voice is actually starting to get croaky. So but yeah, really exciting. There's lots of great content that will be coming out soon. So yeah, if you enjoyed our episode, you can check us out on so we're on Stubs. Oh gosh. You can check blah, 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 blah. God. My voice and my executive functioning are seriously going downhill. So we're on Substack. So if you subscribe to us on Substack, there is a paid option if you would really appreciate it if you did. But there's also free subscription options, and whenever we release any content, you get an email to let you know. So for those ADHDers out there, that can be really helpful. We're also on like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all those other places, but they don't send you an email. So if you're like me, you'll start listening to a really cool podcast, and then you'll forget it exists, and then you'll go back into Spotify and go, oh yeah, that's right, I was listening to that like 3 years ago. So if you really like our content and you really want to remember that it exists, I'd really recommend subscribing to our Substack.